Paul would say in Romans, the problem wasn't with the law. The problem was with the fact that man couldn't keep it. Where did the law come from? It came from God, right? Mount Sinai, right? We read about this. It came from God. The problem was with man. So when we come to the new covenant, is the new covenant, does it just add a few things and take away a few rules? Is that the only difference?
Completely different for us.
It's completely different. Instead of being based upon works of merit, what's it based on? Faith. Jesus Christ.
Christ has already done.
Right? What Christ has done. The law of Moses is a system of works-based salvation. What are some other systems of works-based salvation? Can you think of any? Roman Catholicism. It's works-based salvation, right? You think about if you know much about the Reformation, it's what Luther responded to. He was like, "What? You mean I got to crawl on my knees and somehow that makes me more of a Christian?" That's not in the Bible, right? Catholicism is works-based salvation. How about Islam? Islam is works-based salvation. Do this, get that. The first time that the difference hit me was I was listening to someone who had been raised as a Muslim, and they became a New Testament Christian. And here's what they said about why they became a Christian. They said, "I didn't become a Christian because I thought you had a better list." It was interesting to me because in terms of morality of do this, don't do that, right? Take out the martyr thing and flying planes into buildings and all that. But in terms of, okay, don't drink alcohol, take care of your family. I mean, all that. He said, we did all those things. I wasn't looking and saying, well, I think Christianity's morality is better than Islam's morality. He said, what appealed to me about Christianity was that it wasn't based on works of merit. It was based on faith in Jesus Christ. Paul would say this in the book of Ephesians, that no man should boast. This doesn't mean that works don't matter. James 2, we understand those things, right? But the base of your salvation is not based on what you deserve. It's based on the grace of God. Does this make sense? So why is that important? Why is it important for you to understand that your salvation is based upon faith in Jesus Christ?
Can't earn it.
Because you can't earn it? If you're trying to earn it, what's the problem? You can't. You'll be incredibly frustrated, always. No matter who you are, the most righteous person, I don't know who the most righteous person on the Zoom call is. I bet some of you got some pretty impressive spiritual resumes. You've done some great things in the name of the Lord. You will do some great things in the name of the Lord. But if you're thinking that that's the reason you're going to go to heaven, you're going to be disappointed. Because here's what I do know about you. You're not perfect. How many of you read your Bible enough? How many of you pray enough? How many of you are evangelistic enough? See, and some of you read your Bible a lot, and you pray a lot, and you share your faith with a lot of people, right? But what we all know is it's never enough. We could always do more. We should do more. This is that frustration. This is where we get into talking about assurance, confidence. It's a failure to understand this. It's the reason that people who have given their entire lives to the service of the Lord and following Jesus Christ, when you ask them about, well, do you think you'll go to heaven? And they say, well, I hope so. Maybe. If things fall just right. You've heard people talk about that? They have no assurance. Listen, I have assurance, and I'm going to tell you, it's not arrogant. It's not because, well, I've done this, and this. We can do spiritual resumes. Paul says that's foolishness. Okay, if you want to insist, I don't want to compare myself to Paul, certainly, right? And but even he says that's a bunch of foolishness that they forced him to do. But I'm going to heaven because I know Jesus. That's the difference in the old and the new. We better understand that. And so when they were coming in and they were trying to bind the law, they weren't just trying to bind circumcision, that they were trying to take away that freedom. They were trying to take away that hope. This makes sense? This will make more sense as we progress. That's the difference in the old and the new. Now, don't go somewhere I don't mean with that, right? People have gone a lot of false places, but don't miss that. Don't turn the new covenant into just another system of works-based salvation, because you're not good enough. And that's not going to help any of us. Understand it's based upon Jesus Christ. This is what's going on in Galatians. These Judaizing teachers are twisting the gospel, right? They're trying to keep Jesus and add Judaism. And so as we read, the very first thing they're going to do is what? Question Paul's apostleship. Paul was this apostle to the Gentiles. He's giving this message of grace and this message of faith in Jesus. And they're going to say, I don't think that's right. That Paul gets this in his Corinthian letters, right? It's not uncommon for someone to shoot the messenger, if you will. So Paul's going to spend a great deal of time defending his apostleship. Let me tell you about where I got my message. And ultimately, he says, what you guys are trying to do is just to avoid persecution. You're trying to have some version of Christianity that actually won't cost you anything. Because Christianity is going to cost them something, especially as they find their way out of Judaism. So Keandra, if you think about these things, and what I would say is that Galatians is about is Paul responding to people that are trying to twist the gospel and hold to a system of works-based salvation. And he's trying to show them, no, our salvation is not based upon our works of merit. Our salvation is based upon Jesus Christ. So let's spend a little bit of time in the text, and we'll kind of see how we progress as we get into lunchtime. And we'll just walk through some of these things, starting here in Galatians chapter 1. The next slide, if you don't mind. But he starts off here and he identifies himself. This is how Paul starts his letters, right? Paul, an apostle, not from men nor through men, but through Jesus Christ, and God the Father who raised him from the dead, and all the brethren who are with me, to the churches of Galatia. Paul starts off by identifying himself as an apostle. Why does he do that? It's about authority, right? You share the Bible with someone, the very first thing you need to establish in any Bible study is authority. Are we going to listen to this book or are we not going to listen to this book? Does this book have authority over your life?